116. In cross-examination by counsel for accused number 5 regarding the movement of the vehicle on the 19th of June 2020 from Roka Police Station, Mr. Dupree testified that the vehicle arrived there at 14 minutes to 7. It had a couple of ignition on and offs at the police station, but the first record of the vehicle leaving that police station was at 12 afternoon on the 19th of June, almost 6 hours or just under 6 hours. From 12 o'clock, the vehicle then proceeded back on Chris Hani Road onto the N12, proceeding along the N12, making its way onto the N3 in a southerly direction towards Katlehong, Vosloorus area, where the vehicle took the Barry Murray off-ramp and he stopped near Bierman Road. He stopped there at 12:26. It is in the area of Vosloorus Court, the police station, as well as Ekurhuleni offices. This time being the Vosloorus Court. The vehicle arrived there at 12:26 and it started up there at 14:04, so that would make it just about half an hour, 8 minutes. All in all, he said it's 38 minutes. Then it went back on the N3. It left the N3 on the R103, where it stopped in the vicinity of the Mall of New Market. He testified that he recalls it being a fast food chain group there. He testified that there is a fast food chain outlet there. Then the vehicle was there from 2:20 until about 25 minutes past 3, almost an hour. The vehicle then went on to Ring Road through Alberton onto the N12 onto Chris Hani Road, where it went into the GPS unlock mode in the area of Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. The first GPS unlock is recorded at 15:48 until 15:58. The vehicle arrived at 16 minutes past 4 on the 19th of June at the Moroka Police Station. The vehicle started up 28 past 6. That would be 2 hours and about 14 minutes. This is now watching the vicinity. That vehicle was stationary at that particular point for the remainder of the 18th up to 23:27. Then that sentence should continue, my lord, from the third sentence at the bottom of the page, starting with the words, when the ignition.
Yeah.
When the ignition was switched on, when the ignition was switched off.
Off.
Yes, off.
Yeah.
Only the next morning of the 19th, early morning at around 23 minutes past 12, did the vehicle leave that point. The vehicle was the first time recorded speed at 23 minutes past 12 that night. It left that location of Marley Street in Fairview Park, Alberton. The vehicle was there from just about 7 minutes to 7 on the 18th up to 23 minutes past 12 the next morning. So that would make it 5 hours and a number of minutes that the vehicle was in that area. Then just to go back to page 27, that paragraph that we speak, it testified that on the 24th of June, this vehicle was at Benoni Garage near Great North in Northmead, Benoni for the entire date. From the 22nd up to the 25th, this vehicle was stationary for the entire day every time at this location, being near Great North Meet Benoni. Testified that this is an SAPS garage where various work is being done on the vehicles for repairs and receiving new vehicles, and also working on vehicles that have been in service. Then we go back to the next page, page 28, the second paragraph from the top. We mentioned that the AVL confirms that the vehicle went to Phokeng on the evening of the 19th of June and left Primrose in the early hours of the 20th of June 2020 and arrived at it left for Primrose from Phokeng in the early hours on the 20th of June 2020 and arrived in Primrose at 4:30 in the morning. Then we deal briefly with the evidence of Brigadier Gninda. His evidence confirms the evidence of Sergeant Mohola and Sergeant Mohani regarding the events that led to him interviewing accused number 1 and 2 and warning them in terms of their rights and the subsequent admissions that they made to him. His evidence further confirms the evidence of Lieutenant Colonel Mboto, Lieutenant Colonel Khadebe, as well as Lieutenant Colonel Rapadu, that he contacted them to arrange for the taking down of the confession statements and the pointing out of accused number 1. He further testified that on the 23rd of June 2020, he was contacted by Pretoria Mood Police Station and told that there is a person who wants to consult with accused number 2. He went there to the police station and accused number 2 introduced him to Mr. Mjiako as his legal representative. Mr. Mjiako confirmed that he is the legal representative of accused number 2 and gave him an enrollment letter from the Legal Practice Council, which serves as Exhibit YY, which confirms that Mr. Mjiako is enrolled as the legal practitioner. And then lastly, as far as the evidence for the state is concerned, we deal with the evidence of Dr. Tabang Hlokwe, paragraph 9.19. He testified that he's a dentist in private practice. He did his community service from 2020 until 21 January in Tlhabani, a community health center district. From 2021 and onwards until present, he's been in private practice. He identified Exhibit VV1 as a standard form that they use in the Northwest District for examining any patient that they see in the dental department. And he testified that as dentists, they go through it with the patient. He testified that there is a questionnaire part and then there is a clinical part of their own examination of the patient. He testified that for that whole year, Mr. Bongani Ntanzi was the only prisoner that he saw. He testified that, and we quote, he remembers continue further asking the policeman, is there anything specific that he's supposed to look out for so that he can rule it off or indicated in the situation? And he testified that he remembers the policeman spoke about him having to check if the patient had any sort of gold tooth inside the mouth. And he said that's basically where he started. But he treated the examination as standard. He said they go onto the heart. They check if there's any history of a heart disease Then he testified, then we want to find out whether the patient has any heart, which means, or any chronic disease that is related to the cardiovascular, which is written here, and it says heart disease. So in this case, the patient said yes, there's a history of a heart disease, and he says he went on to ask further, what does the patient mean when he says he's got a history of heart disease? He says the patient mentioned that back in 2014, he had a mining accident whereby he then told Dr. Hlokwe that he had a minor heart disease that he stated to him. He said the patient couldn't elaborate further. He said he's not taking any medication for that. He said he just noted it down because it's something that they need to take into consideration if they are going to treat the patient. And my Lord, we mentioned, as we did yesterday here, that this fact of the history of a heart condition is also the same history that was mentioned to Mrs. Cronje when Ms. Cronje inquired from accused number 2 if he had any medical condition that he wanted to report. The accused responded, I do not want to report any medical condition or injuries except I had a heart problem. So both, as you mentioned yesterday, my Lord, both Dr. Hlokwe and Ms. Cronje mentioned the fact that the accused did report to them that he had a heart problem. Then at paragraph 9.21, the doctor testified that the accused did sign the form. He testified that the procedure is as follows regarding the procedure that they follow on dental examination. He testified that, and I quote, meaning it's where we start checking the patient, generally speaking, and getting into certain details. So in what we do, we are supposed to check in the extra oral examination. We check the general appraisal, which is what we look at the patient, and we look at whether the patient is abnormal or the patient looks to have any sort of disabilities or any sort of defect that to a normal medical healthcare professional terms, given the anatomy that we learned and the conditions that we are given. We do the general appraisal. In this case, we said it's normal, meaning that we look at the patient. The patient had no particular abnormalities. Said maybe there's an arm disability, or maybe the patient has some sort of, or showing that they are wearing an ankle brace to show that maybe their leg is hurt or anything. The patient looked normal, and there were no any sort of disability. He said then they check the neck area, if there's any sort of bruises. He said those ones we check in general of saying maybe if it's a patient, maybe it's a child. When we look at them, they have bruises around the necks and also the face. It means maybe it's an assault patient. Then that's when we refer to certain disciplines to be seen by a medical officer. Then they can take it further and see whether what's really happening from there. So he testified that with this patient, there were not really any sort of abnormalities when it comes to the patient being bruised, disabled. So in other words, my lord, Dr. Hloko is saying that the patient looked pretty much normal at the state of being examined. Then paragraph 9.22, regarding the question whether accused number 2 had any injuries, the doctor testified, and we quote, "In this case, there were no certain marks that showed maybe that the patient was really choked. And as for the face, there were no lacerations, or also there were no markings that the patient was kind of like they were in any physical severe altercation." Said as far as the face goes, the nose, the eyes, the way in which the neck was, and when you look at also the state of the teeth, it didn't look like the person was really actually maybe severely beaten. It looked fairly normal. The accused did not complain to him that he was assaulted. He said the accused also has an opportunity to be examined by a medical practitioner if he had complained of any injuries, as there is a medical unit there. And he testified that where they work, the patient can't pass through the medical side and go through to the dental side without the medical people referring the patient to that side. Meaning that the patient, when they got there, that is now to the dental area, they go to the reception area first, a file is opened, they then look at the vitals, that is now the heartbeat, the blood pressure, etc. And when they got there, when you take the vitals, the nurses that take the vitals, they also end up asking the patient, are they specifically coming for the dental side? And also if in this case they asked the police, they would have asked the police, they came to the dental side, whether, they would have asked the police whether they came to the dental side or they're going straight to the medical side. He testified that if they have any part of their body that's not dental related, that, that needs to be done. So he says if a patient came straight to them, that means the patient has no abnormalities that they could notice there at the reception. That, my lord, was in essence the version that the state presented to the
except that evidence was attacked, was it not?
Well, it was attacked.
The competency or otherwise of Dr. Tlokwe.
Indeed, and it was mentioned that he went further than what he was expected to do. It was mentioned, and I remember, especially counsel for accused number 5, that he is not a medical practitioner. So he's not well placed to testify about the injuries, but he did say that in their training as dentists, they deal with anatomy. They're trained to look for, obvious signs of injury so that they can refer the patient to a medical practitioner if there are any injuries that are detected during a dental examination. Then, my lord, we deal with the defense case. In paragraph 10.1, we mentioned that at best the grounds on which the admissibility of the statements made by the two accused are being challenged are unclear and contradictory, and this we say with the greatest of respect, my lord. And we refer to the discourse that the court had with Mr. Ramosepile on behalf of both accused. We've quoted this passage yesterday. We just referred just to certain portions. When Mr. Ramosepile was asked to clarify the grounds on which the statements are being attacked, he mentions that my instructions are that he never made any statement referring to accused number 2. He also denied that he made an admission or pointing out. Then Mr. Ramosipili mentioned further that the making of the statement needs to be clarified because he says the statement was brought to him, he was assaulted, coerced to sign that statement. Then the court inquired from him when he says he never made a statement, it means no statement was made by your client. He can make a statement because he was coerced to have made a statement or force, as you say. Then Mr. Ramosipili replied, that is exactly. Then the court inquired from Mr. Ramosipili, what does he say? And Mr. Ramosipili then responded, my lord, this is the position. He made a statement because he was beaten up, assaulted, abused to sign the statement. The court then inquired from Mr. Ramosipili, but you say it was never made freely and voluntarily. Then Mr. Ramosipili said, indeed so. Then there were the following exchanges between Mr. Ramosipili and the court. Then the court said to Mr. Ramosipili, for instance, you have told this court that your client was coerced into making a statement. He replied, yes. By being assaulted, he said, yes. And then at paragraph 20.3, on behalf of accused number 2, Mr. Ramosipili outlined the...
Sorry. Let's, for my understanding, so that even the defense can chip in there. What is your understanding there? Because as I have tried to elucidate what Mr. Ramosipili's client's defense was, he says he made a statement, meaning if you have made a statement, there is a physical manifestation of the writing of that statement, which will be recorded by the magistrate.
Yes.
Except that you will say, I was forced to make the statement. I was assaulted to make that statement. I was coerced to make the statement. But the statement is there.
Yes.
As opposed to saying, a document or a statement was brought to my client to sign.
Yes.
Mr. Ramosipili doesn't say that.
Indeed, my lord.
Doesn't say that.
At paragraph...
You'll have to deal with it because that's not how I understand it. He made a statement. He didn't make a statement.
Yes. And that is the point we make at paragraph 10.4, my lord.
Right? What is it?
We'll just quickly deal first with paragraph 10.3. On behalf of accused number 2, Mr. Ramosipili outlined the grounds for challenging the admissibility of the statement as follows. He says, let me state individually, accused 1, probably referring to accused number 2, he was assaulted over a period of time. He was arrested on the 16th of June 2020. He says he was assaulted from the 19th of June 2020 until he was taken to court. Now, at paragraph 10.4, my lord, we then address the issues that have just been raised by the court, that from the explanation of Mr. Ramosipili, it's not clear as to whether accused number 1, firstly, whether he denies making a statement. 2, whether he admits that he made a statement, but that he was coerced to make a statement by being assaulted. 3, whether the statement was brought to him and he was assaulted to sign a statement that was already prepared. So in other words, that is not the source of the statement and is unaware of its content, but that the police are. We then mentioned that insofar as accused number 2 is concerned, Mr. Ramosipili mentioned that he was assaulted from the 19th of June 2020 And we point out that this is in direct contrast to the second version that was put, that accused number 2 was assaulted from the 18th of June 2020. Then on page 32, paragraph 10.5, we deal with the version as it was put to the witnesses. Firstly, to Lieutenant Colonel Mboto. Mr. Ramusepoli put the following version to him. That the circumstances under which accused number 1 met Lieutenant Colonel Mboto are the following: that he was brought to a police station in Soweto that is not known to him by several police officers. Amongst them, he later knew their names as Mohola, Butelezi, Seleka, Mabena, and Gininda. These are the people that brought him to your office, and they were further in the company of several Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department or SWAT officers. And he then requested Colonel Mboto to comment, and Colonel Mboto commented as follows. He said, "Yes, my lord, I can comment. As I mentioned that to my office, only one policeman came with the accused." He said, "I mentioned in my evidence in chief that with my knowledge and experience, I did not think he was supposed to be alone. I did not know who are those." There's now the people that Mr. Ramusepeli mentioned. He said, "If Brigadier Gininda was there, he hid himself from me. I never saw him, my lord." To further explain, if Brigadier Gininda was there, I was going to give him the confession. I was not going to take it to the office for him to collect it on Monday as he testified to. And my lord, we submit with the greatest of respect that that makes sense. That why would, if Brigadier Gininda was there, why would he keep the confession statement exhibit FF and not hand it to Brigadier Gininda there and there?
Meaning at
Diepkloof.
Diepkloof.
Yes.
Instead, he drives to Innerdale,
Yes.
where
yes.
the kennel is supposed to be situated,
Yes.
employed,
Yes.
which is a distance. I don't know if you know Soweto and that area.
Yes.
Quite a distance, driving to Innerdale on your way towards Vereeniging.
Yes. And he keeps it with him until Monday when Brigadier Gininda collects it. Mr. Ramusepeli further put the following to him. He said, accused, that is now referring to accused number 1, he further instructs me that these police officers that I've mentioned, upon their arrival at the police station, they took him to a room, and in that room, he was assaulted and he was tortured. Then Colonel Mboto responded as follows. "The only room that I know, my lord, is the room that I was given by the client service commander. I can deny that the client service commander can give people his room just to assault a person. Those people and the accused, they were coming to see me. I do not think even that Brigadier Gininda, he knows Diepkloof set up. My lord, there is one entrance at Diepkloof. You enter the gate, you get into the client service center. That was the room I was given. So there's no other room outside that maybe I can say he's started there. So that one I deny, my lord, that it occurred. Then Mr. Ramosipili put it to him that the said assault and torture was meted out to accused number 1 because they were telling him to talk and incriminate himself in a crime that he said he does not know and he did not commit. Then Lieutenant Colonel Mboto responded, "May I not comment on that, my lord, but if that thing occurred, he had all the time and opportunity to explain to me as a neutral person, but he did not explain that." It was also put to him that when Lieutenant Colonel Mboto stepped into that room, the assault and torture stopped, and that Lieutenant Colonel Mboto then called the suspect, accused number 1, to the side, that he had documents, and he then told accused number 1 that if you do not sign these documents, these people are going to continue and perpetrate these assaults on you. And, my lord, here it's worth mentioning that and this we mentioned on page 36 of our heads, that Mr. Mngomezulu initially put the following on record. Mr. Mngomezulu, is that, we're on page 36, is that the accused was forced to make a confession regarding to accused number 2. Then Mr. Mngomezulu responded, "That is correct, my lord. He was assaulted in the presence of the witness that is coming to testify." That was, and the court said, "in the presence of Colonel Rapadu." Then Mr. Mngomezulu responded, "Rapadu, that is correct, my lord," and further that the confession was not written by himself. So here, my lord, Mr. Mngomezulu, on behalf of accused number 2, initially said accused number 1 was assaulted in the presence of Colonel Rapadu, but Mr. Ramosipili says that when Colonel Rapadu walked into that room, the assault then stopped. Further on in the cross-examination of, I think it was Colonel Hadebe, the court did point Mr. Mngomezulu to the contradiction.
Yes, yes.
And he then said no, the assault stopped when Colonel Rapadu walked into the room. But the fact, my lord, is that it is on record that there was initially this contradiction. But we leave it there.
But I'm concerned with the logic, of accused number as well. Mr. Ramosipili's assertion. Because the end product of this is that his client did not make a written confession. He signed a document which he never read,
Yes.
which he never explained, which was never read back to him. Right?
Yes, indeed, my lord.
That's how I understand it. But you see, if you now want to think logically, it is put that that is Mr. Ramosipili, that the assault and the torture was meted out to him because they were telling him to talk and incriminate himself. Now, if you think logically, once you talk and incriminate yourself, you have not yet made a written,
Yes.
or you have not yet dictated a written confession, because it's tautologous to say, they say he must talk and incriminate himself, and thereafter they bring a written confession. Are you with me?
Indeed,
Mr. Museki, do you understand my logic?
in fact, we made a note at the end of that quotation by Mr. Ramusipili that when you step into the room, the assault and torture
Stopped.
and then he then called the suspect, accused number one, to the side. You had the documents and told him, if you do not sign these documents, these people
Yeah.
are going to continue to perpetrate this assault on you. So the note that we have made is that so they are no longer telling him to talk to incriminate himself.
Yeah, but if you don't think soberly, ufunda nje isingisi, it will escape you.
Yes. Then Mr. Mboto then responded, "No, my lord, that is far from the truth. I'm the one who got to the room, and then I'm the one to be fetched. I'm the one who fetched him inside that room. So if he said, I step in the room, that I find him inside being assaulted, but there was nobody in that room, my lord. I was alone. I was given the room just for me, and then he is the one who came while I was inside the police van, and then I was shown the place to sit. Then I take particulars of the policeman. The policeman went out, so he then said, so there's nothing like that. Then Mr. Ramusipili, that because the assaults commenced from during the day in Tembisa, when he was arrested in Tembisa, then taken again to Vosloorus near a court building in Vosloorus. The assaults were also perpetrated there. Then at this police station in Soweto, it was for the third time. He then relented and agreed and signed those documents because he was fearing for his life based on what was meted and perpetrated upon him. Then Lieutenant Colonel Mboto responded, I do not want to talk about Tembisa or Vosloorus, my lord. I will talk about Diepkloof, where I was involved. At Diepkloof, my lord, the Client Service Center office for the community, as well as the police who were on duty. If I'm in that office, it can be an officer, you can be at the Client Service Center. I do not know which Client Service Center commander can allow the assault to be taken by the people that he did not even know them, where they are coming from. So that is far from the truth. At Diepkloof, nothing happened. And my lord, that makes sense what Colonel Mboto is saying, that there would have been a client service commander just right next door to where they were, and that it's unlikely that a client service commander would allow an assault to be perpetrated just next door to the client service center by the people that he did not even, that the client service center commander would not have known where they come from, and what we submit that what Lieutenant Colonel Mboto is saying here is probable. Then Mr. Ramusipili put the following to him, that because the assault commenced from during the day in Tembisa when he was arrested, then taken again to Vosloorus near a court building in Vosloorus, the assaults were also perpetrated there. Then at this police station in Soweto, it was for the third time. He then relented and agreed and signed those documents because he was fearing for his life based on what has been meted and perpetrated upon him.
But it's not signed, sorry, he's not signing them inside the offices of Mboto, according to the version which is put, that
Yes.
he was made to sign these documents in the midst of these young policemen. Mboto described them as healthy and fit and said, you know what, if that assault, as Mr. Ramusipidi puts it, eventuated, then of course, accused number, is it number 2? Sorry, number 1.
Accused number 1.
He would have been brought here in an ambulance. You remember that?
Indeed, that is the point that we are making in the in the next page.
Yeah, sorry, because according to the version of accused number 1, Mboto never even sat down. When he came in, they were assaulting him in that room,
Yes.
and then he intervenes because they stop, and he says, hey, you know what, just sign this thing, otherwise
Yes.
they're going to kill you, whatever.
Yes. It says he called him aside and said,
Sign.
here are the documents. As to who prepared those documents, where Lieutenant Colonel Mboto would have received those documents from, it's unclear. But they say he called him to the side and said, if you don't sign these documents, you'll be further assaulted.
Yeah.
And we mentioned, my lord, that accused number 1 had just been arrested some few hours before he was brought to Lieutenant Colonel Mboto. Now, the question remains as to when would someone have had that opportunity to compile those documents, the version in the statement, and then handed them to Colonel Mboto. And on page 34, this is the point that we are making as to when would there have been an opportunity to compile those documents. And Colonel Mboto responded as follows. Logically, if I'm having this form, I do not understand when did I complete all this information according to him, but me, I got all this information from him step by step. He said the time that we spent, it shows itself that we were sitting and doing something. I cannot just come and say, sign this. I will not be respecting the constitution of the country. And Mr. Ramusipili then put it to him that this pro forma was never ever read back to him. He then testified it was read, my lord. That is why he managed to make some corrections in some of the points. And as we've already pointed out, and he said that one is rectified. He said it was read back to him, and then we asked the question, my lord, why would he make corrections if was not the source of the statement? There was that portion that we wanted to refer to, but we will do so. See, my attention has been drawn to the fact that it's time for the long adjournment.
Okay. Okay, 2 o'clock.